I never really liked being home alone. It wasn't that I was afraid of the dark or anything like that. I'm not a child. But there's something about the silence, the stillness of an empty house that always feels off. It was just a normal Thursday night, and I was home alone. My parents were out for dinner, and my younger siblings had gone to stay at a friend's house for the weekend. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening of binge-watching TV shows and catching up on some homework. Around 8 p.m., I decided to make myself a snack and head to the kitchen. As I opened the fridge door, my phone buzzed on the counter. I reached over and saw it was a private number calling. Normally, I would ignore it, but for some reason I answered. "Hello," I said, half distracted, still pulling out the cheese slices. There was silence on the other end, followed by a low, raspy breath. I paused, instinctively looking around the kitchen. A cold shiver ran down my spine, but I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a wrong number, or some weird telemarketer. "Hello," I repeated. Then came the voice. It was deep, muffled, like someone trying to speak through a cloth. "I can see you." I froze. My heart skipped a beat. The words were so casual, but they hit me like a punch to the stomach. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaky. I thought about hanging up, but curiosity got the better of me. "I'm right outside." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My body froze in place. The kitchen, usually so familiar, felt alien. I could hear my own breathing now, loud and heavy in my ears. "Is this a prank?" I asked, trying to steady my breath. I glanced over at the window. Outside, the front yard was shrouded in darkness, the porch light casting long shadows across the driveway. I couldn't see anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was no reply for a long time. Then suddenly the voice came again, this time closer. "I see you in the kitchen. I know you're alone." My blood ran cold. My heart raced. My mind screamed at me to hang up the phone, but I couldn't. I was frozen. I stumbled backward, the phone still pressed to my ear. I looked out the kitchen window. Nothing. The driveway was empty. But then something moved. A shadow. Just a flicker of motion at the edge of the porch. My throat tightened. I put the phone down, trying to calm myself. Maybe it was a joke, maybe just some sick game someone was playing. But the words kept echoing in my mind. "I see you in the kitchen." I started to turn away from the window when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of the front door creaking open. The sound was soft but distinct, like a heavy breath in the dark. I felt my pulse race as panic set in. The door hadn't been open when I went into the kitchen, and I was certain I had locked it behind me when I arrived home earlier that evening. I grabbed my phone and stepped cautiously toward the front hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't dare call the police, not yet. What if it was just someone playing around? But I couldn't ignore the terror creeping up my spine. Slowly, I approached the door. It was slightly ajar. I hadn't opened it. I hadn't moved from the kitchen since that phone call. My breathing quickened, and I knew I had to act fast. My hand hovered over the door handle. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. Before I could make a decision, the phone buzzed again in my hand. It was another private number. I answered quickly, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" The voice came through again, but this time it was different. It wasn't the raspy, muffled tone anymore. This time it was calm, almost conversational. "Don't be scared. I'm already inside." I froze. The door creaked open just a little more. The shadows in the hallway seemed to stretch, twisting unnaturally, like they were reaching for me. My breath caught in my throat, and I almost dropped my phone in panic. Then I heard a slow, deliberate footstep on the other side of the hallway, followed by another. And another. They were in the house. I couldn't tell you how long I stood there, paralyzed, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment, everything was still. And then, just as my mind scrambled for some way out, the voice returned, soft and almost playful. "I hope you enjoy the rest of your night alone." Suddenly, the line went dead. I didn't wait. I ran to the back door, fumbled with the lock, and bolted out into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I was at the neighbor's house, pounding on the door, my mind racing, the fear clawing at me. Later, the police came and found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No sign of anyone in the house. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever had been on the other end of that call had been watching me the entire time. It's been a few weeks since that night. I still live in that house, but I can never forget the sound of those footsteps and that voice. The one that told me they were already inside. And now, every time I hear a private number calling my phone, I can't help but wonder, what if they're still watching me, just waiting for the right moment to make their final move? I woke up to the sound of someone calling my name, but no one was home. It was a Tuesday night, just like any other. My parents had left for a weekend trip, and I was left alone in our old house, tucked away on the outskirts of town. The kind of place where the silence seems to breathe, heavy and thick, pressing in on all sides. I had always been fine with being alone. After all, I was used to it, or so I thought. I'd been sitting on the couch, binge-watching an old crime series, when I heard it, a soft thud from the wall behind me. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but then it happened again. A little louder, like something or someone was tapping gently on the other side. I froze, my breath hitching. It was just the old house, I told myself. But then the tapping grew louder, more urgent. It didn't sound like settling anymore. It sounded deliberate. I stood up, every muscle in my body tight with unease, and walked toward the wall where the sound was coming from. My hand brushed against the peeling wallpaper as I leaned in, my ear pressed to the cold surface. There was again, a faint knock, then another. It was rhythmic, like a countdown. My pulse quickened. I backed away slowly, a feeling of dread spreading through me. There was no one in the walls. The thought didn't even make sense. But then it knocked again, this time louder, clearer, and it was followed by a whisper. "Come closer." I swear, I felt my heart stop in that instant. It wasn't the wind or the house settling. Someone or something was in the wall, and it knew I was there. I bolted for the door, intending to run out and find help, but as I reached for the handle, the lights flickered. The room plunged into darkness for a split second, and when the lights came back on, I saw it, a shadow, lingering by the doorway, tall, thin. Its figure was barely there, just a distortion against the air, but it was enough to paralyze me. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like I was underwater, and I had to force myself to step back from the door. The shadow didn't move, but the air felt colder. I thought I could hear my name again, faint but clear, carried through the darkness. "Come closer." I didn't wait for a second invitation. I ran to the basement door, wrenching it open and slamming it behind me. I wasn't even sure why I went down there. Maybe because I felt like I needed to be somewhere. Anywhere, where it was harder to hear whatever was in the walls. My breath was ragged, my body shaking with adrenaline, but I couldn't stop. Not now. The basement, as usual, was cold and musty, filled with the scent of mildew and dampness. I fumbled for the light switch and found it. The dim light flickered for a moment, then steadied, casting long shadows against the stone walls. I thought I was safe. But then, the whisper came again, but this time, it wasn't from the walls. It was from behind me. "You're not alone." I spun around so fast, I almost tripped over my own feet. My eyes scanned the empty basement, the dark corners where the shadows seemed to gather. There was no one there. The room was empty. Still. But that feeling, the one that gripped your heart and wouldn't let go, was there. It wasn't just a presence. It was a weight in the air. The kind of weight that makes the room feel smaller. like the walls are closing in around you. And then I saw it. Right there, against the far wall, was a small crack in the stone. I hadn't noticed it before. At least, I didn't think I had. The crack ran from floor to ceiling, thin and jagged. As I stared at it, something, or someone, moved in the dark space behind it. I could see the faintest outline, just barely visible, like a figure pressed against the other side, waiting. I stumbled backward, the air leaving my lungs in a ragged gasp. And that's when I heard it again. Come closer. I ran back up the stairs, adrenaline pushing me faster than I thought I could move. But as I reached the top, I slammed into something cold and hard. My eyes shot open, but there was nothing there. Just the empty hallway. Except, the door to the attic was slightly ajar. And the whispers were louder now. More urgent. Come closer. We've been waiting. I didn't know what to do. My mind was spinning. Should I run? Should I hide? But before I could even think straight, the door to the attic slammed open. And through the crack in the door, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Eyes. Thousands of eyes. All staring at me. I screamed and bolted for the front door, my hand fumbling on the knob, desperately trying to escape. But the door wouldn't budge. It was locked, and I had no way out. The whispers had started again, and this time they were right behind me. Come closer. Suddenly, everything went silent. I spun around, heart racing, expecting to see the figure or the eyes. But there was nothing, not a sound, not a movement. And then, I heard it. A creak. The attic stairs had started to descend. One by one. I don't know how I'm still here, writing this now. I don't know how long I stood frozen, watching the stairs creep down. But when the first step touched the floor, something inside me snapped. I ran out the back door, not daring to look back. I don't know who, or what was in the walls, in the attic, or waiting for me. But I do know this, whatever it was, it's still here. And it's still calling my name. If you're ever home alone, remember this. Some things don't live in the walls. They themselves are the walls. And they're waiting for you to come closer. I'll never forget that night. I still can't make sense of it, and the more I try, the less I feel like I'm in control of my own thoughts. It started with a phone call, simple enough. My parents were going out for a weekend getaway, and they'd left me home alone. I was 19, so this wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I was used to being alone in the house. In fact, I preferred it that way. No one around to bother me, to mess with my stuff. My mom called that night, around 9 p.m., to check in. We talked for a bit, and then she asked if I had any plans. Nope. Just gonna hang out. Might watch a movie or something. Alright, just make sure you lock the doors, got it? She sounded a little too serious. I told her I would, and we ended the call. Afterward, I decided to make some popcorn and start a movie. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, quiet, safe, so I wasn't exactly worried. I wasn't expecting anything to happen. But the weird thing is, after I hung up, I kept thinking I saw something. A shadow, moving across the kitchen window. I brushed it off at first, but after a minute, I had to check. I went over to the window, peered outside, but there was nothing. Nothing but the empty street. I locked the window just to be sure, pulled the blinds down, and tried to relax. A few minutes later, I went back to the couch. As I settled in with my popcorn, I thought I heard something in the hallway behind me. A creak. It was subtle, but enough to make me pause the movie and look over my shoulder. Nothing. I wasn't scared, but a little paranoid. I told myself it was just the house settling, or maybe the wind, though it wasn't even that windy outside. I pushed it out of my mind and tried to focus on the movie. But then I heard it again, this time louder. A soft 3 taps coming from the direction of the hallway. My heart jumped in my chest. I sat perfectly still, listening, trying to figure out what it could be. I slowly got up and walked toward the hallway. The lights in the living room were dim, casting long shadows. The taps came again. I couldn't tell if it was coming from upstairs or just beyond the door. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife from the drawer, more out of habit than fear, and crept back toward the hallway. As I passed the stairwell, I thought I saw something at the top of the stairs, a figure standing motionless in the dark. My stomach dropped. I couldn't see clearly enough to tell if it was real, if it was a person, or if my mind was just playing tricks on me. I called out, a shaky hello, but there was no response. The house was silent again. I walked slowly toward the stairs, keeping my eyes trained on the dark shape. When I reached the foot of the stairs, I held my breath and waited for any sound. Nothing. But then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something shift. A dark shape in the living room, something behind the curtain. A shadow no longer still. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned and looked. The curtain was swaying gently, even though there was no breeze. I was sure I hadn't left it like that. I moved toward it cautiously. The closer I got, the more I could sense something was off. My legs were heavy, like I couldn't move fast enough. When I finally reached the curtain, I grabbed it and yanked it open. There was nothing, just the empty yard and the dark, moonlit sky. But I could still feel the tension in the air, like something was watching me. I stood there for a long moment, frozen, as if waiting for something to happen. I could feel my pulse in my throat, the weight of the silence pressing in on me. I stepped back, turned away from the window, and when I looked down the hallway again, the shadow by the stairs was gone. I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe the stress of being alone was getting to me. So, I went back to the couch, tried to focus on the movie, tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my chest that something wasn't right. But the tapping returned. This time, it wasn't subtle. It was louder, closer. I jumped to my feet and grabbed the knife again. I stood still in the middle of the living room, straining my ears, waiting for the next sound. It came again, but this time, it wasn't from the hallway. It was from the bathroom. The sound of soft, rhythmic tapping. I ran to the bathroom door, yanked it open, and of course there was nothing. The light flickered overhead. The room was empty, but the 3 tapping sounds continued, louder than before, coming from behind the door. I stepped back. My mind was racing. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was losing control, like the house was turning against me. I could hear the tapping now, echoing from the walls, as if there were dozens of them, thousands of small, invisible fingers drumming against the inside of the walls. And then I heard it, a voice, low, almost like a murmur, coming from just beyond the bathroom door. "Let me out." I froze. My blood turned to ice. My heart felt like it was beating in my throat. I had to get out. I had to leave. I ran to the front door, threw it open, and didn't stop until I was out on the porch. My phone was shaking in my hand as I called my parents. They came home early. We checked the house together. We found nothing. No signs of a break-in, no weird noises, nothing. The doors were locked. The windows were secure. I haven't stayed in that house since. I've moved out, found a new place to live. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed in the dead of night, I hear it. The tapping, soft and persistent. And no matter how far I run, I still wonder if something, or someone, is waiting for me to come back.